one of our best finishing oils that we have. It has been used for centuries, especially for outdoor wood to protect it from the elements. They even coated boats in tung oil. Imagine that. It's been used on flooring and furniture throughout time. It has definitely stood the test of time. So I'm going to show you how easy it is to use, the fact that it's all natural, non-toxic, and it's perfect for sealing, for instance, exterior milk paint projects, inside and or out, and also flooring. Now, many people like to build and layer the tung oil to get a really thick finishing coat, and it is as durable as possible, especially for flooring. You do need to, for instance, if you're putting it on an open pored wood, you do need to thin it out a little bit, especially the first couple of coats, with some odorless mineral spirits. And we have that here. We're going to do a little demo for you to see. And if you could also put it on full strength, it does dry, it oxidizes and dries very, very hard. And it's great for protecting stained wood, milk painted projects, flooring, siding, and for instance, the door behind me, although it's interior, if it was an exterior milk painted door, I would have definitely used tung oil to seal it. We always encourage you to experiment on a side that is inconspicuous or another spare piece of wood, just to kind of get the feel for the product. I'm going to be applying it full strength onto this stained pine, and then for the piece of oak, which is an open pored hardwood, I'm going to be diluting it just a little bit by about 20%, so that the tung oil can seep deep into the pores. And this is where you would want to build your sheen, and that will give you a really good protection. And as I said, flooring, it's super durable and it resists all kinds of stains and water. It's perfect. So just putting it on full strength to the pine. And it's quite thick. You'll definitely want to apply a very thin layer. You apply a thick layer, it's going to get really gummy on you. And a finishing oil always requires it to be wiped back, which means you remove the excess. And when you're wiping it back, you're going to want to give it a bit of a buff. Now, I've really put on way more than I needed for the demonstration here, but you can see how it's already darkened up that milk paint stain, and it doesn't really have any kind of aroma to it. It's 100% natural. You can even use this on your cutting boards. Again, you just want to wipe it back using a lint-free cloth. I'm not using any gloves right now. I'm using it very similarly to the hemp oil, right? We don't have any kind of solvents in here. It's non-toxic. So as I take off the excess, always going in the direction of the grain, now I'm going to take another part of the rag and give it a bit of a buffing. Okay, this buffing part, you're going to want to create a bit of friction, and that is part of what you need to get the sheen happening. Very similar to when you're using SFO, okay? Another finishing oil that we have. There we go. So you can see the difference there. It's really enrichened the color here of the milk paint. Again, the tung oil can be used to revitalize garden furniture, teak furniture, things that have been outside all winter long, and in the spring you just want to kind of bring back the richness of the color of wood. A coat of this is all you need. And always be wary of your oil-soaked rags, because the heat that is created when the oil oxidizes, you can actually have spontaneous combustion of your rags. So always open them up, throw them on the line, let them dry for a couple of days, and then dispose of them in accordance to your local rules. For this piece of pine, I applied the tung oil straight on and buffed off the excess. But for some projects, you want to build your tung oil layers, for instance, flooring or tabletops. And depending on your wood species, you're definitely going to want to allow the tung oil to penetrate deep within the wood fibers. It has to be thinned to do that. And it will also assist with the drying process. You'll need to wait a good day between your layers, and you will build a lifelong protection using this particular product. So I'm just going to show you really quickly on this piece of oak that has been stained with milk paint as to how much I thin it. I'm going to go about 20%. So putting in a different vessel, some of the tung oil, and using, again, the odorless mineral spirits because a lot of the nasties have been removed, and it's a great solvent to use. Okay, now that's a good 20%. It feels like the consistency of water. And just apply it using a cheap brush. Do not use expensive brushes. You can use any of these workshop brushes that we have available. Simply apply it onto your raw wood that's porous. Now again, we stained this using our milk paint stain. And because it was a water base, it's a little bit rough, no problem. You just keep it rough. It's just some of the wood fibers that are sticking up. Now this also, you'll find that the oak is an open pored wood, which means it has little tiny pores, kind of like your skin. And because the tung oil is thinned out, it's sinking deep into the fibers and pores of the wood. So you allow it to penetrate deep into the wood, let it sit on there for a good 10 or 20 minutes, and then you will want to buff off the excess. Again, using that same bit of friction, which is going to up your sheen. Now the fact that you've thinned this out, you are going to have to put multiple layers. A floor, you could put 7 or 8 layers on, but that is going to give you a very long-lasting finish. And you would just probably re-oil it every couple of years. And for a tabletop, I would do definitely 2 or 3 coats. And every subsequent coat, you add a little bit more into your mixture of the tung oil. So the first coat will be diluted 20%. Your second coat would be diluted 10%. Your third coat, 5%, until you get to your very last coat, which would be 100% tung oil. And it ends up being a fantastic finish. Very protective, very resistant to any kind of stains. If you have any damage to your wood after, simply come along with some tung oil, put it on, buff it off, and it just simply disappears. So now I'm going to take my rag, and I wonder if we can show the camera. You can see some of the pores where the tung oil has simply soaked way down, and that's the duller areas. The shiny areas is where the tung oil is still sitting on top. But give it a good 10, 20 minutes. Just for the camera, I'm going to remove the excess now so you can see. Using a lint-free rag, wipe off the excess. We did do a couple of large projects. I ended up going through a pair of jeans. Perfect material for wiping off the excess. Okay, I've taken off the excess. Now get to a cleaner part of your rag, and now comes the buffing part. Okay, just a little bit of heat and friction. You'll get a gorgeous sheen. You just don't want to see any shiny spots because that means there's just too much oil sitting on the surface. It's going to get quite gummy and you're not going to end up with your desired results. So right here, there seems to be a little bit of a shiny spot. Again, just give it a little bit of a buff. There we go. So wait a good 8 hours, and you can get away with waiting less because it's diluted more, okay? So once you start getting to more of a full strength, you're gonna have to wait a good day before you put on an extra coat. I hope you found this helpful. Reach out to your local fuchsia merchant to find out more information or pop a comment down below.